Oh, break. Whoa.
30 seconds and counting.
There were plenty of years where there were guys who would dread being drafted by the Buffalo Bills. Not anymore.
Astronauts report it feels good. T-minus 25 seconds.
Brandon Beane realizes they're in a window of 2 to 3 years max to get this done while the iron's still hot. And getting Von Miller into that situation was big for the Bills.
10, 9.
Oh, baby.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Great interview, guys.
Oh, baby! What is up? Buffalo Fanatics. Z-Bot here with you. Live on the Buffalo Fanatics YouTube channel on a mayhem of a Monday. And that can only mean one thing. It is the smoke break. Less than 24 hours removed from the franchise tag deadline. Teams wasted no time getting to work this afternoon. Plenty of crazy headlines coming out of the NFL today. Some blockbuster moves, some blockbuster contracts. I think we got some more info on a lot of other things to happen down the line. Aaron Rodgers potentially. Derrick Henry potentially. We'll get into that. A lot of stuff happening in the NFL, and it's crazy. Just when you think you're getting into the offseason, it's when you realize there is no offseason. The offseason does not exist for the NFL, but that's the way we like it, baby. It's the way we like it. And it's crazy. I said this last week when I hopped on here, and it was the first day of March or whatever, and I couldn't believe we were already here. And as we continue to tick on, now the draft is really heating up. You have, of course, the free agency stuff going on now. And then a week from tomorrow, the new league year starts, and that's when you're really going to start seeing a lot of these moves being made. It'll be inevitable by then. Then Aaron Rodgers will be somewhere new, I'm sure. We could see Derrick Henry somewhere new by then. There'll be plenty of moves made within the next week and so on, but there were plenty of them made today. Good to have you in on a Monday night here on the Buffalo Fanatics YouTube channel. If you're just tuning in, I'm sure a lot of you are watching the Sabres right now. Jeff Skinner just tied it up. I got to tell you, man, I've been watching a ton of hockey since I moved down here because football's over and I'm in a new town, as you know. So, we don't really know anybody. My girlfriend, Caroline, she works like 12-hour shifts as a nurse. So I've just been watching a ton of hockey. So I've been getting really into the Sabres recently, which is fun because I don't typically do that. And I've been watching other games too because they're all on ESPN Plus there. And Connor McDavid, I mean, it's unbelievable. This guy, automatic. Tonight, the Sabres in the Sabres game, first goal. It's just like it's automatic. He's like the most sure bet out there. It's ridiculous. But the Sabres are really fun to watch. I'm praying they find a way to sneak in. I know they're on the outside looking in right now, and they're close. That would be awesome. And then I know you're wondering, well, is that a limited edition Katy Perry T-shirt from her residency in Las Vegas? It absolutely is, because I was there, had to get the memorabilia, as you know. And I had to commemorate what I think to be maybe the best concert I've ever been to. And you know how many concerts I've been to in my day. So I felt like, hey, I got the Katy Perry on tonight. Nothing can go wrong, except for probably the internet, which will eventually happen. I can already see it's happening again and again. We're not going to try to do a rant like we did last week. You already know the drill by now. It is. I mean, I've talked to, we're in the process of trying to work it out. It's out of my control, as many things are. What else is on the agenda? Yeah, so we got a lot going on tonight, a lot to talk about as far as what happened today out of the NFL, what we could potentially see moving forward, because we're going to see a ton of stuff unfold over the next week here. And then how does that inevitably wind up impacting the Bills? We'll have to see how that all unfolds. Shout out to my little niece Peyton, who's watching right now with my girlfriend Caroline and Chloe and Michael and the gang. She loves watching Bot on the big screen. Of course she does. Who wouldn't, right? She's like, I want crazy story, by the way. My niece Peyton, who's watching right now, she's like, I'm so bad with ages. I think she's 3, maybe 4. I have no idea. Sorry, Chloe. But anyway, so she, she's at the store the other day with them, and they're walking around, and for some reason they happen to have like a kids Bills T-shirt or something laying around, and she picked it up off the rack and then went up to her mom and said, "Oh, Z-Bot wants this. Z-Bot wants this." And I thought it was the coolest thing ever, because she doesn't. What the hell does she know? Like, how would she know that? And it's because and it hit me where it's like she has probably only known me, throughout her whole life. She's probably seen me with the Bills logo on every single time she's ever seen me. So that is like it was crazy to like think about it that way, because that logo, as a kid, I guess, so you don't know what it is, but you see it nonstop, and then all of a sudden you're just like, oh, it's Z-Bot. So funny stuff. We got a lot going on tonight. Like I mentioned, I didn't want to do it alone because, as you know, like I said, we're getting into the meat of the offseason here. It's still blowing my mind that that's where we're at, but that is exactly where we're at. The league year starts a week from tomorrow, and then before you know it, short month after that, the draft kicks off. So didn't want to do it alone tonight, and I'm not going to. I got my main man, Rev, joining me tonight. Just when you thought he was out, I pulled him back in. Main man, Rev, joining me here on the smoke break. What's happening, brother?
Man, what's going on, bud? It's good to be with you guys, man. How you been?
I'm good.
Yeah?
I keep forgetting, I think, like when all the stuff was unfolding today, it still feels as though last week we're trying to put the pieces together as to how the hell the Bills lost that badly to the Bengals. And here we are going into the second week of March, and you're watching
from,
the
legal tampering period. Yeah.
Exactly. And the landscape of the league is completely altering. And I think we're going to see a lot of crazier moves. And we already perhaps anticipated. We know Aaron Rodgers is definitely going to be, in a situation where he could move. And I think that impacts us as Bills fans more than we realize. And it continues to go in that direction day by day here. I mean, I swear to God, it continues to become more inevitable to me that he's going to become a Jet. And the crazy thing about it is I don't hear anybody talking about it. And so we'll start there right now. We'll start there, Rev, right off the bat, because the reason we know it's becoming more likely that Aaron Rodgers could be a Jet is because Derek Carr, of course, the former quarterback for the Las Vegas Raiders, who had a weird ending to his tenure there. It did not end well. He thought he'd retire as a Raider. It always felt like he would. It just seemed like he fit there. Ended poorly. They split ways, and Derek Carr today, he finds his new team. He signs a deal with the New Orleans Saints. Derek Carr shifts gears from the AFC to the NFC with a rebuilding yet young and talented, New Orleans team that in that division can do some damage, and that conference can do some damage. As we know in the NFC, it's anybody's ball game, and all of a sudden in that conference, and especially in that division, Derek Carr all of a sudden becomes one of the better quarterbacks amongst his peers on that side of things. And it's crazy to think that you go from having to go against Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, twice a year, right? And then, of course, you add Russell Wilson to the mix if he gets back into gear. And now he goes to a division where he is unarguably the best quarterback in the league. But, Rev, how that affects us as Bills fans, above the fact that, it's just a big move to begin with, Derek Carr was linked to the Jets, and that got insanely heavy just yesterday. The rumors were really starting to make their way out into the stratosphere that not only were the Jets potentially interested in Derek Carr, but Derek Carr was interested in the Jets. That is no longer the case. He signs the deal with the Saints. And so now the other guy linked to the Jets that we all know, is potentially, in play, but we haven't really been talking about it a whole lot. It's A-Rod. So talk to me, Rev. Where are you at right now with this situation? Because if you're the New York Jets, and I want to make sure this is clear, by the way, because the reason I talk about the Jets and the reason I think that, it's worth talking about, not only when it comes to them as a whole, but when it comes to talking about them adding pieces to their team, especially at quarterback, where we know they were completely inept. If they get a guy which I felt Derek Carr would have been a great addition in itself, but it didn't work out. But if they got a guy like Rodgers, whatever, this is a team last year without a competent quarterback that did beat the Bills, a team that was on the fringe of the playoffs the entire season and had a year well beyond expectation. It's a team that is young, incredibly talented, despite being young, and they have built through the draft in a way that has them set up. And if they get a quarterback in there that can take advantage of that, who knows? And Aaron Rodgers could potentially be that guy. So, Rev, right now, as you see it, with the New York Jets moving in to the league year here, what do you think happens? Does Aaron Rodgers wind up going there, or do you see the Jets taking a different direction, and it's something we're not going to have to worry about as we head into the year?
You know, I really don't know what other direction the Jets can take. They definitely cannot go into this season with Mike White and Zach Wilson again. They can't do that.
There's no shot.
No way. It makes perfect sense for them to be all in on some type of a veteran quarterback right now who can get this team even more competitive than they were last year. Let's not forget that the Jets last year were no slouch, right? I mean, they beat the Bills. Zach Wilson, granted, that defense is legit, but nevertheless, they still won. Beyond legit, yeah, Super Bowl caliber defense.
Quinnen Williams sacked Josh Allen twice in 3 snaps before he got injured in the second time around when they played. I mean, this team is the defense.
The team is loaded. Defense
loaded, and they're all young. The whole unit.
A lot of them on rookie contracts. Very good, very, very good defense, and it makes sense with Robert Saleh, right, former defensive coordinator.
Sure.
But then you look at the offense. They have weapons on offense. They have Garrett Wilson, right, first round wide receiver. Michael Carter, Breece Hall before he got injured, right?
We forget it, right? Because he got injured.
Completely forget about. Yeah, we completely.
He might have won Rookie of the Year had he not, got injured. But it didn't matter. It didn't matter because the Jets still wound up walking away with 2 rookies of the year.
He was well on his way, and that team is talented, man, extremely talented, and they were just a quarterback away from really, really, truly narrowing the gap in the AFC East. Like I think as Bills fans, we need to be mindful of just the competition in the division. It's not as big of a gulf between the competition as we may think it is. When you look at Tua and the Dolphins and what they were able to do to us, we almost lost to them in the playoffs. Let's not forget about that. Okay, Tua beat us.
We did lose to the regular season with Tua,
right? Exactly. And then
granted, that was when the defense was completely annihilated, but still, the point still stands because you kind of washed that out with the fact that, like you said, the playoff game, it was the Dolphins that were completely ravished. It was in Buffalo. It was the playoffs.
Yes.
The Bills were 2 touchdown favorites, and it took a game that had me, borderline cardiac arrest,
Absolutely.
But I literally almost passed out 12 different times during that game.
Yep.
And the reason it was that bad is because I could not believe what I was watching. I mean, I was just losing my mind. And the fact that it was happening against those Miami Dolphins was, it made it that much worse. But I think the point you're making right now is spot on. And it's one that I think we are neglecting. And that's why I think when a move inevitably does get made here, and if it is Aaron Rodgers, the landscape of this division and ultimately the AFC changes.
Yes,
completely.
It does.
Because Miami, right? I mean, Miami is still who they are, and I'm my thoughts on them. But there's still a team that obviously plays the Bills incredibly tough. But the Jets, they're a team that flew so under the radar because of how bad Zach Wilson was. They have yet to have a team with a competent quarterback that's been able to take advantage of what they have put into this team to get where they're at. And the thing of it is, Rev, if that does happen, you have them ascending, right, with this young talent, whereas the Bills are all of a sudden in the position now where they're trying to find more of it because they're running out of it, and it's kind of a different end of the spectrum here.
It's completely different. And we know the Jets, they're going to play tough. They're going to be tough for a long time. As long as they got their defense intact, they're going to be extremely tough. And they gave Josh Allen this offense extreme fits. And so when you look at adding a guy like Aaron Rodgers, we're talking about a first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback, not some scrub off the street. I mean, heck, if they would have added Derek Carr, it would have made them much better than what they were last year. It would have made them more competitive. You know what I'm saying? But
infinitely would have. I mean,
way better.
Rev, if they would have signed Derek Carr, I mean, I'm telling you right now, that is. I don't think people were truly resonating with the fact that that would have been a major leap for this team. Zach Wilson played a historically bad ball last year, and the Jets were still incredibly competitive.
Yes, and so they're only just an average at best quarterback away from competing for a wild card spot, and all it takes is for them to get in. Because with that defense, I mean, there's no telling what they could do. And so, yeah, I'm not, I wouldn't say I'm worried, but I definitely have my eyes on the Jets, especially if they're able to land a guy like Aaron Rodgers. We can't sleep on that team. I think this division is going to get a lot tighter, and the Bills cannot rest on their laurels. They can't get too comfortable thinking, "Oh, we got Josh Allen, we'll be fine." No, you're not. Right. You're not. You're gonna find yourself getting slept on. I mean, you're gonna find yourself sleeping on these other teams and being on the outside looking in. We have to make sure that we continue to, as the Bills, continue to build and make sure that we get better and better and better, because the AFC, man, the AFC in general is just going to continue to get better, but especially the AFC East, man, especially if you add a guy like Aaron Rodgers, it's going to be incredibly competitive.
And as you said, you said the word worry. I'm not worried, because what's the difference at this point? You add another piece to the puzzle. The puzzle's already overflowing with pieces. The AFC is so stacked. If you add you add Aaron Rodgers to it, I mean, honestly, what is it? What difference does it make? It's already a complete dogfight to begin with. Where it sticks out to me is the Derek Carr rumors to the Jets start heating up. Nobody was even willing to reference the fact that would have instantly made the Jets twice as good as they were last year. They won't even want to acknowledge.
They pooped on it.
Yeah.
So they pooped on the idea.
And now that's off the table. And the alternative is twice as good as that. And I still see nobody talking about it. I understand, it's being talked about. Rodgers could potentially going to the Jets. But as much as we like to, we like to chat online on Twitter. I mean, the Bills, Bills Mafia, we spend time on the keyboard, no doubt about it.
We do.
And I got to tell you, for as much time as we do talk about a variety of different stuff, I have seen an overwhelming lack of discussion about the potential here, because I don't even, competitiveness aside, I don't even think we have given a true thought to the fact that the Bills could be playing Aaron Rodgers twice a year. And when you say that out loud, it's odd. It's odd, and it's weird to kind of wrap your head around. But if that happens, I think we go into the season, you almost don't even think about it, because it just seems like it's so odd. I think when you get there and you realize what this team is, and then you kind of realize the situation that is, like you said, that's going on around the AFC, and then the situation the Bills are currently in, where it's back to your point. If you rest on the laurels, there's no laurels to rest on. It's Josh Allen, and if you're going to do that, we've seen the result.
Exactly.
So,
and then the Jets, they have a 13th overall pick in the first round.
So
they got a chance to add more talent.
Yeah, well, it's the equivalent of going backwards. If you stay in the same position, it's the equivalent of going backwards.
Absolutely.
And that's the situation that's currently unfolding right now. Aaron Rodgers, he's going to have to make a decision soon. By the time the league year starts, the Green Bay Packers will have to owe him, I think, nearly $60 million. They're either going to have to bring him back in or make a move. This is going to have to happen within the next week. I have yet to hear another legitimate candidate for Aaron Rodgers outside of some rumblings of potentially Carolina. I could not see Aaron Rodgers ending his career in Carolina. I don't see it. I think that it's just a wild concept to wrap your mind around, because not only are we not talking about it, I don't think we're kind of facing the fact that if it does happen, it's going to happen. I mean, it could happen tonight, and that's really an odd situation.
It really could. But I mean, here's a team that just popped up in my head. I'm wondering, what you think about it, because I haven't heard anything about this though. But so you've got Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. I'm looking at Tampa Bay. Like what about him going south down there?
And I think it kind of really hit me today. This offseason is going to be wild. There are so many teams that need complete overhauls. The amount of teams that need quarterbacks is extraordinary. And that's not even including the teams that you could argue that would potentially need one. But the amount of teams currently that do need a quarterback, and we're not even referencing the fact that even if it's not Aaron Rodgers, a guy like Jimmy G, who, listen, Jimmy G is not, Zach Wilson is not Jimmy G, right? I mean, we're talking about guys who are competent, competitive, winning quarterbacks that the AFC East, quite frankly, has not had outside of Josh Allen since Tom Brady went to the Buccaneers.
Wow.
We have not had to be challenged with that.
Yeah.
And that's what makes last year even worse, because not only was it just that, we've been over this a million times, the setup, setup for the Bills was just as good as the Bills were themselves. And that's what sucks the most. And it just felt like if there was going to be a year where the Chiefs had a falling off period, it would have been last year. You lose Tyreek Hill. You have an incredibly young defense. You revamp your O-line. You got a rookie running back, and it just didn't matter. And now it starts to settle in, because you understand, okay, that was a perfect situation, or at least it felt like it was until it wasn't. But now, where we're at right now currently, as opposed to where we were at this point last year as a fan and as the optimist, as we measure the optimism level, if you're like me, it's a lot different. The feeling is a lot different. It's not just because of how I feel about the Bills, the way the season ended and the things that have unfolded since, but it's because I'm looking around at the rest of the landscape and everybody's getting a bit better. I mean, there's just little pieces that add up. I mean, Jacksonville is one of those teams, in my opinion, that I think is going to be an absolute wagon. I think Jacksonville. Yes. Right. I think Jacksonville is
that team is on the come up. Yeah, that team is definitely on the come up.
They're already ahead of schedule. And people forget that Calvin Ridley, a high draft pick who was on his way to have a promising start with the Atlanta Falcons, if it weren't for a BS gambling, a legality amongst the league. He was betting on his own team, whatever. He gets suspended the whole year. He's on the Jaguars now. And this is a team that turned Zay Jones, who the Bills couldn't do anything with, right? The Jags turned Zay Jones, Christian Kirk. They turned a lot of guys that nobody else wanted. Evan Ingram, right? And they wound up putting together a promising year after one of the most tumultuous years any team has ever had under Urban Meyer. They're only getting better. We see the trajectory that the Bengals are on. Of course, we know the Chiefs. Of course, we know where Miami is heading if they can get to or whoever in that position, where if they can get on the right track. We're talking about the Jets. If Russell Wilson,
Tom Brady,
under Sean Payton can get it in gear, right? There's just so many elements.
Yeah.
And it's not even, as we focus in going in, through the show here on what the Bills could potentially do, and we'll talk about running back in a second here. The struggle that I have as a fan is it's not only do you focus on what the Bills have to do, but you also look at the rest of the league, and it just feels like there was a time where the Bills were ahead of the curve, and it just feels like that curve is flattened out to some degree. Actually, extraordinarily. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I would definitely agree with that. I want to say that if it kind of feels like they've gotten comfortable. You know what I mean? Like you can kind of look at the fact that you got Josh Allen, and just a couple of years ago, I mean, you went toe to toe with Pat Mahomes, and you just were just that close to winning, right? And everybody knows that, or at least they felt that if the Bills had gotten past the Chiefs, there's really no team that would have won, and we probably would have been hoisting up that Lombardi Trophy last year, but it didn't happen. And then so we go into this year, and the big thing that happened, we lost Dayball. He went to the Giants, and it just felt like we got real comfortable and started drinking the Kool-Aid. I know I did, man, early in the year with the whole Super Bowl talk and the Bills are Super Bowl favorites and 20-0 and who's going to beat them. And even when they came out of the chute, the first couple of games of the season looked unstoppable, right? And then it just kind of plateaued from there. And it almost seems like they trust Josh Allen way too much. Not that they shouldn't trust him, but it's like, oh, we've got Josh Allen, we're okay. We got Stephon Diggs, we'll be okay. We've got a top defense, we'll be okay. But that's not the case, man. Like in the National Football League, I don't care how talented you have a quarterback or how talented you are on the team. You have to continue to build and get better because especially the way the landscape of the NFL is going right now. I mean, teams are getting better quickly, And unless you're like in the position like Brandon Bean had mentioned earlier, that kind of got blown out of proportion, talking about I think the Vikings sucking bad enough to get a guy, not the Vikings, but the Bengals sucking enough to get a guy like Jamar Chase. Unless you're in that kind of position where you can just reload from high draft picks, it's going to take you a while to build, and that's kind of what the Bills draft process has been like. But now these other teams who have been on the bottom for a while with these high draft picks, they're starting to turn over really quickly, and you're starting to see the talent gap shrink, right? And the Bills better look over their shoulders, man, because you got some teams nipping at their heels, not just within the division, but like you mentioned, other teams like the Jacksonville Jaguars. And we completely forgotten that they got Calvin Ridley on the shelf for an entire year. Now he's back, so you add him to the mix with Christian Kirk, and you've got Lawrence who's an ETN and
Travis
that whole team.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure.
Yeah, man, it's just the entire AFC is getting so much better, and I need the Bills to get with the program and realize, hey, man, like we don't have a whole lot of time to be playing around with these teams. We have to get better now, be all in or nothing. You know what I'm saying? Because what I would hate as a fan is to see the Bills with a generational quarterback like Josh Allen and completely waste his years, his prime, what we have, because we were just too comfortable and got too lackadaisical and watched other teams pass us by, and we ended up losing, and we never were able to get to that Super Bowl, man. So I think the Bills, man, we have to continue to move forward, man, and get better, because the AFC is not going to quit. Like, we're the hunted now. You know what I'm saying? Sure. They're coming after us.
And the overall sentiment here, I think we're driving home, is it's not just that the Bills have to improve here. They have to, replace this. Leslie Frazier's gone. Love him or hate him. I mean, the Bills defense was what it was under him, and it was an extraordinary defense. That's gone. Brian Dable, gone. And now we have plenty of the fan base up in arms about Ken Dorsey. So there's two of your top, your top coordinators gone now, right? Now you're going to have to move on from probably at least two of your top defensive players, you'd think. You have realized now that you don't have a legitimate wide receiver too. You're still up in the air as to what you're doing at the running back position. And, frankly, your offensive line is mediocre at best. And it's just the things that are upheld because of the talent of Josh Allen. And as you watch the talent of these other teams increase, and you'll see that continue throughout the offseason here, that's the one thing that I think becomes more alarming than the situation that the Bills have within the organization itself, because we already are aware of that. There's nothing you can do about the fact that the teams that, are usually ones you run over, right? Like the Jets, like the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's no longer the case. And with the Bills kind of in the position that they're at right now, it's got to be like a situation with the Kansas City Chiefs, where when you almost, it's addition by subtraction in a way. When you lose guys, or when you are in a situation where you're cap strapped, you have got to find a way to navigate around it. That's why the Chiefs are so as good as they are. I mean, they moved on from Tyreek Hill simply because of the cap situation. Yeah. And they wound up completely cashing in on it. And it gave Patrick Mahomes probably the best year of his career so far. There's ways to do it.
And it made them more dangerous.
Are they going to wind up doing it, right?
Yeah, it made them more dangerous, because everybody knew it was Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, right? But now that he's gone, he's had to spread the wealth, which makes them that much more difficult to defend, because now it's not just Hill, now it's Juju Smith, or now it's Mecole Hardman, and now it's this and that, and then now they got a running game in Isaiah Pacheco, because they invested in the offensive line after getting the tail waxed in the Super Bowl against the Bucks, and said, you know what, let's correct this, keep Mahomes upright, and they've just made the right moves to get back on top. And we saw what happened. I mean, people were kind of sleeping on him a little bit this year, saying, oh, well, it would have made it, losing Hill is going to hurt them. Well, no, they still had Pat Mahomes. They still have, one of the greatest offensive-minded head coaches in the NFL, probably going to be a Hall of Fame head coach as soon as he retires. And so they just picked up where they left off, and they're just as dangerous, if not more dangerous than they've been before. So, yeah, man, the Bills can't get too comfortable, and I like with the point that you made earlier about Josh Allen, like he kind of covers a whole lot, right? And I think us as fans, we've kind of been so enamored with the skill set of Josh Allen and just kind of his invincibility, so to speak, that we've neglected to see the shortcomings of the team. And all it takes is for one team to expose your weakness. And for us to be sitting here questioning like what happened in the playoffs or why did we lose? Well, here it is. Josh Allen can't do it all by himself. This team has some shortcomings. They have to get better in some areas, which I look forward to doing hopefully this offseason, man.
And let us be clear, it's not like the Bills haven't done exactly what we're talking about. They have. It's just that they're in the position now where what's done is done. You're only as good as your next at bat. They have done enough to build their team up into one that is the hunted, the team that is considered to be the favorite. They are again going into this year, or at least depending on where you look, 1 or 2 as far as the Super Bowl is concerned. They are there. The point being driven home is the situation that currently faces them is that if they do as much, if they so much as just stay exactly where they're at, which you'd think, a 13-3 year, a divisional playoff, appearance again, a home divisional playoff game, a divisional championship, or a divisional champion again. It all seems well and good, especially based on what we've been conditioned to see throughout, the years here. Mm-hmm. But we saw on full display that it was not nearly as good as the record indicated. And we also saw the blatant gap in talent, I think, in production out on the field as you watch the playoffs progress, because you all watched that Super Bowl and you saw what was out on that field. And the Bills did not have that type of juice that the Eagles and the Chiefs had at all, probably post-bye week against the Green Bay Packers. So all we're saying is now is we know the Bills are capable of it, but if they don't find a way to tweak the things necessary in order to get back to the fine-tuned machine that I think was really humming 2 years ago, there's going to be teams like the Jets in this situation, right? Like the Jaguars, where you can't fathom it, but all of a sudden you blink, and there they are. So the reason we're talking about the Jets, and of course the reason we're talking about these other teams, is because these are the teams that are actively looking to make big moves as we head into the start of the league year. The biggest domino in the quarterback market, or the first domino, rather, in the offseason quarterback market, which should be crazy, by the way. I mean, let's be real here. We got a lot of guys that maybe fly under the radar, but they're going to be shifting. They're going to be shifting locations. Jimmy Garoppolo, perfect example. Aaron Rodgers, potentially he could be moving. The Lamar Jackson situation continues to get weirder by the day. What I have been reading up on as of the last few hours is that the Baltimore Ravens are expected to franchise tag Lamar Jackson tomorrow. Tomorrow is the franchise tag deadline. However, the big question is, are they going to do a unrestricted or restricted franchise tag? And the difference is the restricted means nobody else can offer the same amount of money or more as the Baltimore Ravens and acquire Lamar Jackson. So if they offer him a restricted franchise tag, that means Lamar Jackson will remain a Baltimore Raven for at least the coming season. However, if they put him under an unrestricted franchise tag, that means back to the Jets again. And this is another situation that I don't even think about, because I was thinking about Derek Carr and I was thinking about Aaron Rodgers. Lamar Jackson is another situation that I have heard, of course, go through the grapevine, because the Jets are quarterback needy and Lamar Jackson has had the relationship he's had with this front office for the last 2 years that has not been going in the right direction. We will find out tomorrow exactly where that's heading, but that is another situation that could potentially wind up coming to the light. Lamar Jackson being in this division. We have no idea. That's what we're heading into.
We do not want Lamar Jackson in the East, man. We don't want him. We don't want to see him in the East. And I get it. We've beaten them, in against the Ravens or whatever. But man, look, it's a different beast, man. Even if they decide, let's just throw out. Hypothetically, right? I don't know how true this is, but him to the Dolphins. You know what I'm saying? If they're concerned with the Tua situation, that's dangerous. The Jets with their weapons, because they have wide receivers where he didn't have wide receivers in Baltimore. It was just Mark Andrews, and that was it. So you give him weapons, wide receiving weapons, plus a running game, plus him. It's going to be dangerous. So we have to watch out for that.
Well, and I also like to reference points like this too when they come up, because these are the little things that I think we might take for granted as we move along here under the Josh Allen era. Lamar Jackson has an MVP. And whether you think he was or wasn't the MVP, whether you think he's a great quarterback, he is, but whether you have people always have a hot take on Lamar. I don't get it, but they always do. But either way, Lamar Jackson has an MVP, right? And he is currently in an ongoing 2-year contract battle that could end with him not being with the Baltimore Ravens. So when you talk about the Bills need to tweak this, the Bills need to get better there, it's moments like this where I do get a sense of calmness because it could be so much worse. You see the turnover at this position every year. I heard the other day, I think it was on Coward. On average, every year, seven head coaches lose their job or switch jobs. So every 4 years, nearly the entire league turns over at the head coaching position. And I don't even know what the stat is for quarterbacks, but it has to be nearly the same number. So when you think about a situation like Lamar Jackson, which it should never have gotten to this point to begin with, these are the moments where you think about what the Bills need to improve on. You think about the way things are going, but you also take a step back and say, hey, at least we got the biggest piece of the pie locked down. We just got to cash in around it. Thank God a situation like this is not one that we have to go through because, Rev, even when the Bills sucked, they still never had to go through anything like this. They just never had a quarterback any worthy of having to battle for. I couldn't imagine being a Ravens fan tonight. Like tonight's the night you go to wake up tomorrow and you find out whether or not Lamar Jackson is going to be locked in as a Raven. I'm telling you this right now. If they offer him an unrestricted free agent contract tomorrow, there is going to be a team, and I very well think it could be the Jets, that offer him the same amount of money, if not more, and will definitely offer him more guaranteed money, which is what he wants. And it's crazy to think that he is in that situation. When you really get down to it, it's Lamar Jackson. It's not Baker Mayfield. It's not Sam Darnold. It's nuts. So these are the moments where you talk about, you scrutinize the Bills and you talk about these things. And of course we do that because you have to. They're to be scrutinized. But you also, and I always say this on here, you always have to look at both sides of the coin because we know better than anybody, it can always be way worse. And right now, for a lot of these teams, it's bad. And a one team that shouldn't be bad for it currently is. And you just, when next time you want to complain and bitch about Bean or, bitch about whatever, we're always going to do it. But always keep in mind that, the situation that nobody thought would work with Josh Allen wound up working. And the situation that, was up in the air with Lamar Jackson worked even better off the jump than anybody could have imagined. And the fact that this is coming to where it is now is wild. And that's one of the biggest aspect out of this week. To me, I'm looking at Aaron Rodgers and I'm looking at Lamar Jackson. I know it's got nothing to do with the Bills internally, but it's got a lot to do with the league. And I guarantee you it's got a lot to do with the conference that the Bills are going to be competing to win this season.
Yeah, and the AFC is already loaded. So, let's hope it doesn't get any more competitive than it already is, because the NFC seems like a cakewalk, right? I mean, it seems like so easy. But the AFC, man, it really is a gauntlet when you look at the quarterbacks in there, and then you could only be adding potentially another Hall of Fame quarterback in there. Don't sleep on Aaron Rodgers, man. So, we're definitely going to see. I can't. I'm so glad, right? I'm glad, like you had mentioned, that we have Josh Allen secured, because we have been down this hole for so many years, right? And we finally got the guy, and we got him locked up. So as long as we have Allen, we're okay. We're going to be competitive, right? It's just the other pieces that we have to make sure we're able to remain intact and keep them together, and even keep some guys happy. And the reason why I mentioned this, Z-Bot, is because, man, Richard Pierce comes in with a super chat.
Yes.
And he mentions this. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, there's been some talk, some chatter on Twitter here recently, man, about my man Stephon Diggs. And Richard Pierce goes on. He says, regardless of what side of the Diggs stuff you're on, can we at least agree that it's becoming a distraction? Now, I'm not too sure how you feel about it, but I want to know your thoughts, man. Because we know there's been some talk about Stephon Diggs and his social media things going on right now. Word on the street is, he's been talking. I mean, his brother's been trying to get him to the Cowboys and talking about that. And then you've got Stephon Diggs apparently has removed all of. I mean, he stopped following the Bills and removed all of his Buffalo Bills stuff, on his IG account, and now he's followed the Cowboys. It seems like it's some. I don't know, man. I don't know how serious we should look into this or not, but nevertheless, man, it's kind of created a buzz within, especially Bills Mafia. And I'm curious to know what your thoughts on the whole Diggs situation right now.
Well, shout out to Richard, because it's a good topic to bring up. It's one I didn't even really think to bring up tonight. And you want to know why? It's because you want to know what side I'm on. I'm on no side. I don't pay attention to this. To me, this is the stupidest shit of all time. I don't even. You want to know what where these sides were created? They were created by the fan base. They were created by us, and we don't even realize it. Nothing's going on. Of course, Stephon Diggs' brother wants him to go play with him. Whose brother? You don't think Travis Kelce tonight wants Jason Kelce snapping the ball for Kansas City? Or you don't think that vice versa? You don't think that Jason Kelce would do anything to have Travis Kelce on that Eagles roster? I mean, give me a break. I mean, that's, of course, if I was in the NFL, I mean, the Watts, they always played together at the end there when JJ was thinking about going to when he was switching teams from Houston and inevitably wound up going to Arizona. Right. That was in talks there. That's obvious. And of course they're having fun with it on social media. They are two brothers in the NFL. I mean, that is like that is the biggest anomaly ever. You have I mean, that stuff blows my mind. The fact that there's that many brothers in the NFL, because I think that is the craziest thing. I mean, imagine being a parent and like the Kelce mom situation was just extraordinarily nuts to me. But anyway, I'm sure a lot of you have siblings or whatever. Like, imagine it's your sibling. Like, you wouldn't want to play for the Bills with your sibling. I mean, think about that. Say that out loud.
Yeah, right.
When you're talking about certain things, put yourself in the shoes of that person. I did this with Poyer last week. People want to get all offended by the fact that Jordan Poyer brought up state taxes. It is a fair point to bring up this man's career. The New York state taxes are one of the highest in the country. God forbid he referenced the fact that he wants to go to Miami, where the weather and atmosphere is infinitely better and there's no state taxes. There's no denouncing one team or the other. I'm just saying, think about your own personal situation for a second and say it out loud. Does that not sound appealing if you had the opportunity to choose? Simply put, back to this situation, if you had the opportunity to play with your brother, you probably would. But it's not like there's an opportunity here. It's not like Diggs is on the chopping block.
No,
and it's not like, and I think it was Bob, you put it up on our Instagram today. I understand the point. There's people who look at it, and I understand this point. And this has got nothing to do with Diggs and his brother. It's got nothing to do with that. It's got to do with the fact that Stephon Diggs, believe it or not, is getting older. And there's going to come a time where he's not going to be your solidified one. And the Bills have yet to find another guy who's even remotely close to a suitor for him, let alone a companion to him, right? Yeah. I think people look at the situation with Diggs and they say, I almost feel like we need to get the biggest juice out of the squeeze here before we get to a point where we have no wide receiver at all. I understand the sentiment to some degree, but at the same time, if you even considered getting rid of Diggs, I mean, once again, say it out loud. If you couldn't throw the ball to anybody else but Diggs this year, if Diggs isn't on the team, who you throwing the ball to? Josh Allen. Josh Allen's got to put a yo-yo string on the ball and throw it to himself and bring it back in like Spider-Man run down the field. You can't do that. So it's not happening. And if anybody looks into the Diggs situation, I'm pretty sure he unfollows all Bills media, and I'm pretty sure I think he deletes his pictures every year. Isn't that a known thing? These guys just do that.
Players do it. Yeah.
And you want to know another thing I want to know? Who's checking that? Who's laying there?
Who has the time to go in there and
just Diggs is still following the Bills real quick?
Yeah, what? And they have fun with it too. I mean, they're like,
you want to take my advice here, right? It's not a problem. It won't. You will not. Well, you want to know how I felt going into the show tonight? Stephon Diggs is a Buffalo Bill, and there's nothing else to it. That's how I went into it.
Yep.
If you look into that stuff and you think into the fact that he follows the Cowboys for some reason, or you think into the fact that somebody made a fan edit of the two brothers on the same team, crazy, right? If you look into that and think, oh, Diggs must want to leave, that is not the case. No. And he's not going anywhere. It's not like these other situations are different because players have a choice. Jordan Poyer has a choice. JJ Watt had a choice. Diggs doesn't have a choice right now.
It's not physically possible. Yes, it's not physically possible for the Bills right now anyway. The dead cat.
And I'm telling you,
it's ridiculous.
What scenario on earth does Brandon Beane say, yep, sign it because we're better now if we move? I mean, what scenario? There isn't a single one.
There is none.
I mean, unless someone decided to attack it. I mean, the only way you could justify it is essentially the exact same way that the Vikings justified it with Diggs. A 101 for a guy that you think is legitimately as good, if not better, and that just happened to be the exact scenario. And they lucked out. I mean,
Yeah,
they took an absolute gamble on Justin Jefferson. No one knew he was going to be the best wide receiver in the league. So unless you have that situation mapped out in front of you, Rev, I mean, I'll tell you this right now, Rev. There's a better chance of me having a six-pack abs, not a six-pack of Mike's Hard, but a six-pack of abs at the Bills tailgate September 27th than there is Stephon Diggs not being on this team. And I'll tell you this right now, I haven't seen my abs once in my whole life. Okay? It ain't happening. Now, I love the fact that this was brought up because this is the shitty part about social media. And I don't know how much people follow other sports in here. I'm not a huge NBA guy. I really can't stand it because I can't stand how character driven it is. That's what makes the NFL so great. It is a team sport through and through, and you see that. Josh Allen is as good as it gets. It still does not matter. You still have to have the guys around you, and even then it's not good enough sometimes. Yeah. But you see a guy like Ja Morant, right, who's got it all, multi-millionaire, one of the best basketball players in the entire league. And, he's flying a gun on Instagram Live. And I know it's a completely different situation, but what I'm saying is it's the aspects of the internet and the way that it's utilized amongst the fan base, amongst these players at times. It really seems to just cause more problems the more you allow yourself to get involved with it. So I only get involved with it unless it's like, if it's a story, like if I hear, Derrick Henry, which we'll get to in a second, Derrick Henry, that's developing. Of course, you're going to look into that. But if you're looking into like Stephon Diggs' followers and his posts,
there's nothing there, man.
I just said that out loud. Once again, we got to go back to the saying out loud thing. Say it out loud. Yeah, I'm going to go look at Stephon Diggs' Instagram followers and posts and then see if he still loves my Bills.
If he's still following the Bills, like, let me go check on that.
I don't know what, and I do agree with people who think it's weird because I think it's weird. I have pictures on my Instagram from like 2011. So I never thought to go, let me go refresh the year real quick. Isn't the whole point to like leave the photos up for memories? Yeah. But hey, Stephon Diggs is probably doing a little bit better at life than I am right now. So I just don't know if I should judge him on his Instagram choices because who the hell cares? Right? How do you feel about it, Rev? I just ripped out for that for 20 minutes. But the reason I did though, Rev, is because I want to emphasize these problems don't exist if you don't allow them to, because I promise you they're not real. They're only real because you go on Twitter and you'll have 50% of the people thinking there's a problem with it. And then you'll have the other 50% of the people arguing with those people. And then you don't even realize that both sides manufactured something that wasn't even there to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah. It's we don't even need to continue talking about it, man. Like Diggs he ain't going anywhere. Okay. He ain't going anywhere. Diggs is going to be here. Was he frustrated?
Imagine. Who's wide receiver two? Isaiah McKenzie?
If Diggs left, the Bills would not make the playoffs. They wouldn't. They would not. Think about that.
You want to know what would happen? And what would happen is Josh Allen, the injury, the risk of injury would
increase
infinitely skyrocket. Yeah. Because he would have to. You think he's doing it all now? I want you to think back to the not so distant past when our wide receiver one was Calvin Benjamin. Okay. We saw what that was like. It would be a slightly enhanced version of that if Stephon Diggs left. And Brandon Beane wouldn't be worth a bag of beans, no pun intended, if there was anything that happened over the next several months that allowed that to happen.
There is no way. No way. Okay, so we can put that to bed. Okay.
Yes.
And not even worry about that. Leave it alone. But what's a real thing that's happened? But what's a legit storyline that we can follow and dive into is the potential of the King coming to Buffalo.
Yeah, so let's get into that, Rev. Before we do, real quick, I just want to summarize for those who might not have been in the complete loop today, because a lot of other things did happen that, once again, in this league, and this is the beauty of the NFL, there's so many big moves that happen that they often overshadow the little moves that are also big. Like, for instance, Geno Smith signs a contract, a bag. I want you to think about this too when you talk about Brandon Beane for a second. You're like, is he going to lose Stephon Diggs? Okay. Geno Smith is making $52 million this season. The other story out today is it's very likely that tomorrow Daniel Jones is going to sign a $45 million contract with the New York Giants. Okay?
That's ridiculous to think about, man.
These are things happening right now. These are happening right now. I can't. Absolutely insane. But Rev, and this is back to the point earlier. There's a difference between the scenario where the Ravens and Lamar have, right? Where they're it's just there's adversity there between the sides. There's a difference between that and the purgatory that, for instance, the Giants are in. Daniel Jones goes out and has the best year of his career, which, let's be frank, it still wasn't all that great. You win a playoff game, which they hadn't done in nearly a decade, and it's contract time. And now you're stuck because either we pay him or we start all over again, and nobody wants to do that because we've been one of the worst teams in the league the last decade. Now they're going to have to pay him near market value. He'll be making nearly as much money as Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes will be. Say that out loud. Geno Smith, the exact same situation. It's the exact same thing for the most part. It's just that Geno Smith's older. So once again, it's just another one of those things. Just bite your tongue sometimes when you think about the way it could be, man, because it's crazy.
Think about this. Daniel Jones last year, okay? This is crazy, man. Daniel Jones threw for 3,200 yards, okay? 3,200 yards. Guess the amount of touchdowns he threw for. He had 15 touchdowns. Yeah. 15 touchdowns.
I think Patrick Mahomes had 15 touchdowns in 4 games at one point throughout the season. I mean,
they're talking about him signing for $40 million. Look, I put this out on Twitter. I tweeted this a couple of days ago and I'm like, yo, Joe Shane, come on, man. Like he was brought up in the school of being. And I'm like, bro.
I was having this conversation today, Rev, with my Giants buddy.
Like, there's no way Joe, like, dude, Daniel Jones is an average
quarterback. What do you do?
I would be willing. Okay, look, this is reminiscent of the Bills 2018. They made the playoffs one year with Tyrod Taylor and then blew the thing up, you know what I'm saying, the following year and was able to find him a quarterback. If I am the Giants, there's no way in the heck I'm paying Daniel Jones $40 million. No way.
Well, this is where the Lamar situation gets interesting to me because if they give him the unrestricted agency tag tomorrow, how do the Giants not say, or how do the Giants not just say, oh, the money we'll give to Daniel Jones, we'll just bump that up a bit and give it to Lamar. Lamar and Saquon in the backfield.
I would give it to Lamar, hands down. Yes. And I said this about Daniel Jones. I was like, look, Daniel Jones is not worth anywhere near the $40 or $45 million that he's trying to get. And so this was my thinking. I was like, look, this is what I think is going on because he got new representation too. I'm like, I think they threw that number out there to force the Giants to tag him at $32 million because according to Spot Track, his market value, his annual average salary is only $26 million.
That doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't.
Yeah,
Ever since Tom Brady left the Patriots, it was over because he always kept the market down because he never took the top dollar.
Yes.
The market was suppressed for like 20. People don't realize this. They are going to 30 for 30 on what they're going to do here because this is what happened. Tom Brady took a team-friendly deal for quite literally nearly 2 decades with New England. Never. Yeah. I think he was the highest paid quarterback in the league for like a year or two in the late 2010 and the early 2010s or something like that. Okay. That was a whole other situation. What they're really going to dissect as we see the repercussions here is the impact that the Cleveland Browns and Deshaun Watson had on this league. They have they have absolutely put the quarterback market in a blender, and that is why everybody hates the ownership of the Cleveland Browns, and rightfully so. And that's why Lamar Jackson, and listen, I'm not going to dog Lamar Jackson. The guy's already had multiple injuries. They've ran him more than any quarterbacks ever ran in the history of the game, essentially through this point of his career. I'd want the top dollar too. And it's not my fault Deshaun Watson got that money. You paid him, and that's where the market's at. And that's why when the market goes so high for a guy like Deshaun Watson, right? Even when it comes down a bit, the market value disappears because you have to be able to pay Daniel Jones or Geno Smith, because if you don't, then you go from, there's a big difference, Rev, between having a slightly above average quarterback to having, Blake Bortles or not even, that's not even a good example. I'm trying to think about like having, Sam Darnold, I guess. There's a difference between believe it or not, there's a difference between a Sam Darnold. There's a difference between a Sam Darnold and a Daniel Jones. Because I think that, and it's very marginal, but and this is just goes to show you, if Sam Darnold had won a playoff game, for instance, with the Jets, it'd be the same thing. This would happen. Because as an organization, you get to a point where you have a certain amount of success and you can't sell the fact that you're walking away from it. You can't sell it. How would you sell to the fan base right now after the best year you've had in over a decade that you're moving on from the guy who had the best season of his career thus far that you drafted to be your franchise guy? You can't sell it. Even though the majority of people know that it's probably the right move, you can't sell it. There's so many problems that you can get involved with. But the main point I'm making here, Rev, is the reason this is the way it is Deshaun Watson. The whole thing is in an absolute spiral. And it's only going to get crazier. Burrow and Justin Herbert's contracts are coming up. And
those guys make sense. Now, those guys make sense. And what I don't, and this is what I hate about NFL organizations or GMs or owners is that they feel the need. Well, it's not even really them. It's the players. Like every quarterback that hits the free agent market, they feel the need to reset the market, regardless of where they stand in the rankings. It doesn't matter if they're number 1 or number 2 or number 20 in ranking. If they're the 20th ranked quarterback and they come available, they feel like they need to be the highest paid quarterback in the National Football League, which is absurd to me. And I get it. Teams are desperate for quarterbacks. For franchise
we don't know how lucky we have it.
I get it.
We don't. Chiefs fans and Bills fans mutually alike. Patrick Mahomes should, if he demanded $1 billion, how do you say no to it?
You give it to him.
Let's say, for instance, you had the ability. They paid him $500 million. So what the hell's the difference? But say Patrick Mahomes came in and he demanded a 15-year contract, something we've never heard of in a million years. And he demanded $1 billion, or he demanded stake in the ownership of the team. I mean, honest to God, that's the one guy you really could not say no to it, right? You couldn't.
Yes. Yeah.
You got Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. They're probably the two best quarterbacks in the league right now, arguably. You can shift them around. I don't care. We've been over this a million times. What I'm saying is, not only do you have that, you got two guys that they care just as much, if not more, about winning than they do about the dollar amount. They know that the money's going to be there. They're going to do what it takes to win. Patrick Mahomes is already doing it. You're watching it. Patrick Mahomes he's already pushed the money to the back burner. He really hasn't made the amount of money that we know it should probably already be in his bank account. The same can be said for Josh Allen. And these will continuously get restructured. They'll do that. But there's guys who won't do that. And back to the point we were making earlier about Poyer, Rev, you can't blame these guys. If they're in it for the money or whatever, and they want the top dollar, I cannot blame them for that. I just say, as a Bills fan and as Chiefs fan, I see some in here, we don't know how lucky we got it. All I'm saying.
Extremely lucky. Extremely lucky. Because I tell you what, I mean, like the Chiefs with Alex Smith, that was who they had before they got Pat Mahomes. Bills, well, you know what we had before then. You know what I'm saying? So we got lucky. We hit on the draft picks, and here we are. But, we could be the New York Giants about to have to pay Daniel Jones $40 million. That's ridiculous. They have Tyrod Taylor, by the way, on their roster. And you mentioned Sam Darnold. I would be okay. I would be okay with, I do too. I'd be okay with letting Daniel walk and then going with Tyrod and picking up Sam Darnold. I would be perfectly fine with that.
It's amazing. It feels like another life ago, but I was like the biggest Tyrod fan. I never had a bad thing to say about him. I just
Tyrod was great, man.
Always will. I don't know. I don't even know why.
He was a great guy. I love this game.
I stand by this, and I always will. He threw one of the prettiest deep balls I've ever seen in my life.
He did.
When he put it down on a dime, I don't know. It was something about his release, and he was so fluid, and he had like the body type.
Yeah,
it was almost like, because how Allen's huge and it just looks like he can do that. It was something about Tyrod where it just looked like it was, I don't know. It was kind of like Russell Wilson in a way when he was obviously he wasn't Russell Wilson, but when Tyrod put it on the money, gorgeous. But hey, listen, I can't believe we're talking about. I don't even know I don't even know what we're talking about. We have a lot more to get to. I know we had the reason I wanted to get in on all that, Rev, is because this is the reason why it's worth getting into. There's so much to talk about when it comes to these quarterbacks now. And we haven't even touched on the fact that the draft is going to be a frenzy. Chicago is going to trade that number 1 overall pick. God knows who's going to wind up going up to get it. And then God knows how much shifting there's going to be. I mean, we're talking about a certain situation right now in this draft where we could see numerous quarterbacks go in the top 10 as we typically expect by now. But not only that, next year's draft is even better, or it's considered to be even better at the quarterback position. And you could argue almost half the league right now is in search of a quarterback. And that's not including the rest of the guys that are cycling around the market right now. And they're big names. And we're kind of putting it all out there because there is a lot that is going to unfold in this offseason. It's going to be awesome to watch. And one of the things we are going to be watching out for, and this is where it gets interesting, because not that I think this happens. I highly doubt it happens. I don't see how it could, but it sparks up the conversation once again that's been being had prior to the fact that Derrick Henry today was announced to be put up for they're shopping him. The Tennessee Titans are shopping Derrick Henry. I think people thought that would be a potential situation that would occur. And of course, it is now the reality. I don't see that in the cards for Buffalo, even though, of course, we all do that. Every time there's a big name that is free, we all want to get all over it, especially thinking about the fact, I mean, the thought, Rev, of two of the most destructive human beings with the football would be in the backfield, and Josh Allen and Derrick Henry is one hell of a thought to have. Don't see it happening, but I wanted to get into this with you tonight because it's not so much Derrick Henry that a lot of people have been talking about, but all of a sudden, just when you thought, and then we do this, and this is becoming the routine now, and I don't know if anybody else has noticed this. I feel like it's hard not to. This is now the third or fourth year in a row where everybody all year long says, nope, no running back. I don't want to do running back. It's a waste of a pick. I don't want to take one that high. And then we get to March and all of a sudden, ooh, I don't know. That's looking pretty good. Are we going to do it? And right now, all of a sudden, I've been hearing Bijan. Is it Bijan? That's how you pronounce it, right?
Oh, Bijan. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. Bijan
Johnson. Or Bijan Robinson, excuse me.
Yeah.
His combine was just as good as his play on the field for Texas. And he was an extraordinary running back in college. His grade coming out of the combine here was off the charts. And all of a sudden now I'm seeing that all over social media for Buffalo. And I wanted to talk to you about it because I know that you were kind of, you were giving your perspective on it and trying to make it, trying to give the perspective of why maybe that is the case. But before I let you give your side, I just want to pose the question. How in the hell, after the conversation we were just having not all that long ago here about the Bills needing to tweak X, Y, and Z, right? The wide receiver position, potentially having to replace multiple starters on the defensive side of things, the offensive line, which is, in my opinion, the biggest issue right now. How do you go running back after you take multiple running backs in the draft over the last several seasons, including James Cook in early round 2 last year, who you barely utilized until halfway through the year, where I think he was really starting to come on and showing a ton of promise. I leave you with that because I understand Bijan Robinson, he could be the next whatever, right? But with the needs the Bills currently have, are they in a position to take the number 1 pick and put it on a running back and not invest it somewhere else that could potentially impact the team in a greater way in the window in which they're currently in, that we know, Rev, it's closing by the minute. I mean, it's just the reality.
I am so glad that you just set me up right here for this conversation. Okay. I have been on this running back in round 1 train for a while. Check the receipts. We can go back to last year. I was on the Breece Hall train big time last year. Year prior, I was on it with Travis Etienne.
I felt like you were getting paid to pump him, by the way. It felt like BF was getting paid to pump him. I felt like that's all we talked about for like 3 months at one point. Yeah.
I look, here's why I like the idea. Okay. there's so many reasons, but let me try to parse through it here. So we know that Bean, Sean McDermott, and them are trying to protect Josh Allen. They've been wanting to protect him. Go back to last year. Sean McDermott mentioned it at the combine press conference, saying that this is when they added Aaron Cromer to the roster, and this is just when they hired Ken Dorsey. They were saying that they wanted to rebrand themselves offensively and wanted to protect Josh Allen, especially even from himself, right? Because we know that he was running the ball quite a bit last year. Okay. And so one way you do that is up front, the offensive line, right? You protect him offensively, right? I mean, up front through the offensive line. Another way you protect him is by having a legitimate running back or ground game behind him to where he is not having to carry the load so much. Now, when I said that last offseason, so many Bills fans were heated and they were up in arms about that. Rev, how can you possibly take the ball out of Josh Allen's hands? He is the best weapon that we have on offense. If you take the ball out of his hands, you're crazy. The offense is going to be bad, this and that and the other. And I'm like, look, Josh Allen is not Superman. He needs help. He cannot continue to do it by himself. Give him a running game to where teams have to respect the running game by bringing people up or even making a decision to either come up into the box to defend the run, right? And if they do that, then they have to worry about Stephon Diggs getting beat outside, right? And then you had Josh Allen running the ball too. Or if they decide, you know what, we're going to try to cover Stephon Diggs, well, then you've got an elite running back behind you that you have to take account for too.
Time out. You keep referencing the lack of an elite running back. Why can't James Cook be that? There is no way we know that there's no way we know what he is. What he showed on the field when he was given the very limited opportunity to do so, I liked what I saw.
I like what I saw from James Cook.
I'm wondering, Rev, I get what you're saying. Nobody wants a stout run game more than me. But why bail on it in the first round after you take him in the second round and you still barely found out what you have in him? That's where I'm questioning the whole thing.
Well, James Cook was never a bell cow back to begin with. He was never that type of running back coming out of college. He was never that. But you want to have.
You're saying they need that. You're talking about a guy.
I'm talking about. Yes, I'm talking about having a guy that where you can rely on. Josh Allen does not have to run the ball as much as himself. He doesn't have to feel the need to have to carry the team. He can turn around and hand the ball off to a guy. Give him 20 touches a game, whether it's handoffs or it's a combination of that and in the pass game. Give that guy that much attempts to ease the pressure off of himself. James Cook's slight guy, very, very light. He's not a big guy. He's very small. He's in fact he's smaller than Motor Singletary was. Okay, when you look at his weight. Now, granted, he has some skills, but he's never been a bell cow guy. He wasn't that guy in Georgia, and it's hard to expect him to be that guy in Buffalo. And so, what I'm saying is this: they're gonna bring in a guy because they want that running back by committee. It doesn't even matter if you have a guy. Look at the Cowboys with Zeke Elliott, and now they have Zeke and Tony Pollard. You still want a guy, right? Franchise tag, exactly. So you want a guy. I mean, go to the Cleveland Browns. Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. Nick Chubb is a bell cow back. You're right. So you want a guy.
I need to say this because I need to say this. The two running backs in the Super Bowl were Isaiah Pacheco and Miles Sanders, two of the smaller running backs in the league. I get what you're saying. I totally do.
Well, the Eagles,
most teams do not have this though, Rev. And those that do, like the Browns, who gives a shit? They blow. Right?
But they don't have the quarterback. You see what I'm saying? Like so what I'm saying is you giving it's all about weaponry here. Let me put it this way. So first of all, Bijan Robinson is not just another running back. Okay, he is by far he is a generational prospect at the running back position to come out in the draft. He is on par to be one of the best running back prospects ever to come out in a very, very long time. The guys, what he did in college is remarkable. His skill set is fantastic. It's like a one in a lifetime type of back. We're talking about possibly like on Adrian Peterson type of level coming out of college. Like that guy is that elite. Okay. It's a weapon. Brandon Bean said it himself in the combine, like, and I don't profess to know more than Bean. He's a general manager. He said, of course you can draft a running back in round 1, and look at Christian McCaffrey, look at these other guys, Saquon Barkley. He was a part of the Christian McCaffrey guy, when they drafted him. But here's the thing, and I think this is where Bills fans get caught up. They look at these examples and they say, well, the Bills can't do that. Well, Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, these guys like that, they were drafted in the top 10. Right, top 5.
Saquon Barkley was one of the worst draft picks in my life.
Okay, top 5 draft pick. Okay, talent-wise, phenomenal. I would not draft him in the top 5. Okay, but if you look at the Bills where they're drafting right now, they're drafting at 27, and they have talent around them. They have an elite quarterback. They have an elite wide receiver. They have talent. Getting a guy like Bijan, if he were to fall that far, which I do not think is going to happen anyway, so this point may be moot regardless. But if he were to fall, a guy like that at 27 is not the same as getting him at 5. Okay, we're talking about late first round, which might as well be an early second round pick. I will do that, and he's an offensive weapon that this team needs. If you think that, okay, let's just talk about this now. Also, people talk about how the need for a wide receiver too. Well, first and foremost, that's likely not going to happen because Brandon Bean is so pumping up Gabe Davis right now. Now it could be smoke.
It's not happening in round 1.
He's not going to give up on Gabe Davis. He's not. They're
going to go wide receiver, but they're not going to go in round 1. I don't see it. I don't see it happening.
And so he's not going to give up on him. And he said it himself. Brandon Bean said it himself that Gabe Davis last year was his first year being the number one, quote unquote, number 2 wide receiver, right? Coming from where he was previous. It was his first year doing that. He's only going to get better. He trusts him, blah, 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 blah. Right. And so if he draft a wide receiver like many people want in round 1 to be this wide receiver 2, that's not going to happen. Where is he going to slot in terms of targets share on the offense? He's going to come in being a number 3. He's going to come in behind Stephon Diggs. He's going to come in behind Gabe Davis, right? And then you've got Dawson Knox. Let's look at these. Let's look at the stats here. Gabe Davis as a legitimate number 2 in this offense, he had 90+ targets last year, 93 targets. You think that Brandon Bean is going to just throw him in the trash and say, let's get another guy to be the number 2?
I don't think anybody's saying that.
But people want a wide receiver too. And they're looking like, well, Gabe Davis is not that guy. So let's go ahead and draft one because getting a running back is ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. But if you add a wide receiver, his value on the team compared to what Bijan Robinson would add to the team is it's a gulf in terms of what he can bring to the team on targets. He will be a wide receiver 3, but if you add Bijan Robinson right now, he's getting 200+ attempts in the year, 200+ carries a year. No running back, James Cook, not Motor Singletary, nobody has done that. No running back that the Bills have eclipsed 200 carries per year since LaShawn McCoy.
So does the offensive line magically get better and allow him to do this?
An elite running back can, just like Josh Allen can cover the deficiencies of an offense, an elite running back can cover deficiencies of an offensive line. The Bills' O-line is not terrible. They have an issue at guard position. If you plug in a guard from you get rid of Roger Saffold and you bring in a top quality guard, the Bills' offensive line gets markedly better. Now, granted, you still have issues with Spencer Brown. You may have to get a guy to push Spencer Brown to compete with him. But if you plug in just that guard position and then you put behind them an elite back like Bijan Robinson, it makes a major difference. Look at Saquon Barkley last year. Are we talking about the Giants having a great offensive line? Their offensive line is not great at all. But yet and still,
but that
Saquon
was also
Barkley,
an offense that had Daniel Jones, and their top receiver was Isaiah Hodgins.
Everybody knew that they were running the ball, and he still did a very good job running the ball behind a very bad offensive line that featured John Feliciano, the guy that we let go. Okay, you know what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is, if you add a guy like Bijan Robinson, he's not only just here's another point. Don't think that the Bills are all of a sudden going to turn to a ground and pound team. I don't think that's going to happen. Bijan Robinson adds value, not just as a runner, but even in the pass game as well. And you compare him with a guy like James Cook, who is an elite receiving weapon out of the backfield, too, with speed, it brings fear to defensive coordinators, because now they look and they say, okay, oh my gosh, they have a speed guy in James Cook, but they have Bijan Robinson in the backfield. Oh, by the way, they have Josh Allen, who's an elite, dangerous runner himself. So what are we going to do? It puts them in conflict. Okay, am I going to sell out to stop and run and risk getting beat over the top by Stephon Diggs and whatever other receiver they decide to add? Or am I going to play coverage and risk getting beat by Bijan Robinson, the speed of James Cook and Josh Allen? That right there puts defenses in conflict, and it gives them, the offense, more weaponry and more ability to be potent than just adding another wide receiver and going into next year with a guy like James Cook and Naheem Hines. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, like, Bijan is that type of a weapon that you just cannot just throw to the side and say, we will never draft a running back in round 1. I don't care who it is, because we're not that kind of team. No, you get a guy like that, I guarantee you're gonna see value out of him in that position. You watch what it does to Josh Allen and the entire offense. It goes hand in hand. We've never had that with Josh Allen, so we don't really know what it's gonna look like. You know what I'm saying? So, but if you give him that kind of, it's a weapon. Brandon Bean mentioned, man, I want offensive weapons. I want a weapon. He could be a wide receiver. It could be a running back like Bijan Robinson. It could be an O-line. It could be anything. It could be a tight end. Weapons is what we need. But Bijan Robinson inserted into this team right now will make a huge difference. That's why I think that a guy like him, man.
And I love the point you made. And Mel Kiper, he completely agrees with him. Mel Kiper's mock draft right here. And here it is. Buffalo Bills, number 27th pick. Take to say. Robinson is a top 10 prospect just based on talent in this draft.
Yes.
But it was tough finding a perfect fit for him. Teams rightly aren't taking running backs in the top 10 anymore, choosing instead to find value in the middle and late rounds. While I agree with that strategy, there comes a point in round 1 in which it does make sense to snag a running back as talented as Robinson, like you were saying, Rev. And that is here. The Bills could get a complete back. Robinson is stellar between the tackles and has great hands as a pass catcher and a player who can make quarterback for Josh Allen's life easier. This is a way for the Buffalo offense to take the next step. If GM Brandon Bean passes on Robinson, keep an eye on offensive linemen. And that's where I come around to. And I understand the points you're making. I'm not in the camp of wide receiver in round 1 just because I don't even think it's necessary anymore. There's teams finding plenty of starting wide receivers all throughout the draft. And it seems like you can take one in every round, and there's going to be a guy who's going to be able to contribute to the team at some point. That's what the wide receiver position has become. And I totally understand what you're saying about Bijan Robinson and his impact on the team. My question that I pose is, are the Bills in a position currently to where that would be the biggest need at that pick in order to be able to capitalize on their current situation? Now, if Bean thinks that's the case, okay. I just wonder then, what was the strategy behind taking James Cook and then not really incorporating him in the offense until the second half of the season? And even then, it was not nearly as much as I thought they would based on when they picked him. And then from there, the offensive line situation, it's not very deep at all in the free agency pool. And then when you talk about the offensive line through the draft, are you going to completely try and build that up through later round picks? So that's where I'm with the argument that Mel Kiper is making, where I do get what you're saying, but I think that the other aspect of it, the offensive line situation, that to me seems like the most pressing need. And it just feels like the one thing that the Bills have not been able to dial in under Josh Allen. And because of that, we've seen a ton of different issues rear their head, and it has not allowed the Bills to be able to run the ball with what they have. Now, maybe what you're talking about potentially elevates that without, a completely revamped offensive line. But I also think that the pass game has been hindered because of that. And, it's getting to the point where you're going to have to invest one of your top picks into being able to solve that in the current situation you're in, because as we keep talking about, it diminishes year after year, day after day.
And now hear me this, because I didn't get a chance to say this. I'm not saying running back is the number one need on this team. I
You're just talking
wholeheartedly
value?
agree. I'm just talking about pure value. I wholeheartedly think
I
that
hear you.
offensive line is the number one need. I think the Bills need to address the offensive line. Absolutely. First and foremost. But now it doesn't necessarily have to come in the draft. They can do it in free agency. And I had a video I put up, man, on my mama video about what I think that Brandon Beane should do in free agency. You mentioned there not being a very deep free agent market for the offensive line. I disagree with you on that. There's a couple of players who I have my eyes on in free agency that I think that Brandon Beane could sign and immediately plug in and not just be and not be a band-aid type of player that we've been accustomed to Brandon Beane adding to the offensive line. Two players specifically, two guards, as Ben Powers from the Baltimore Ravens. And then that's the Nate Davis, offensive guard from the Tennessee Titans. Both of those guys are phenomenal guards in the National Football League. Both are 26 coming off of their rookie contracts, right? PFF has them. Their average market value is between $7 and $9.5 million each. And what I proposed was Brandon Beane reallocated the resources that he would have used towards bringing back Jordan Poyer and Tremaine Edmonds and focusing that towards the offensive line and free agency, getting guys like that who are coming off of their rookie contracts who are very good, very good. These I'm talking about not middle of the pack, Band-Aid type of offensive linemen. I'm talking about these guys are legit starting offensive linemen who've come from great teams. Ben Powers, the Ravens, Nate Davis, the Titans. Okay, and trust me, they're not Nate Davis. I know we probably have PTSD from Roger Saffold and the Titans. Okay, we don't want to have that same thing again. But Nate Davis is not a 34-year-old Roger Saffold. He's 26. Okay, look at the tape of Nate Davis. Look at the tape of Ben Powers. Very good guys. If Brandon Beane can reallocate the money and spend it on one of those guys and insert them immediately into this offensive line starters, now the offensive line looks a lot better. Okay, and Brandon Beane is not going to have to go into the draft feeling the need to have to, man, I've got to find an offensive lineman quick. You know what I'm saying? We know his MO is to fill as many needs as possible in free agency and then take best player available that he can in the draft. If he fills a hole at offensive line with an elite level guard in free agency, then we're not talking about him having to address that position in the draft early on. Then if a guy like Bijan Robinson is there at 27 and we've already secured the offensive line, why not? Okay. Now, if he's unable to find anybody, in free agency to fill the offensive line void, then he's going to have to go into the draft very desperate to fill that void. And the only guy in the draft in round one that I would consider them getting would be Osiris Torrance from Florida. Yeah. If he's not there, I'm not reaching. At that point, it becomes all about value. It becomes all about value. And there's some other guards in the draft that the Bills could get in the second round and in day two, but it's a crapshoot, man. So that's why I'm all about, man, look, do what you can in free agency first, and then we'll see what happens in the draft and let the board fall as it may. I don't want anybody to think that I'm all about, the number one need on the Bills team is running back, because it's not. It's offensive line. I need to see a guard protect Josh Allen that way. But if they can fulfill that need before the draft and a guy like Bijan happens to be there at 27, I am running that card up as fast as possible. As soon as the team previous picks their guy, I'm Brandon Beane. The card is already up there. That's just because he's that type of a talent. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no doubt. I think you made some phenomenal points, terrific points, and I think that you want to know what it all comes down to with me, and you know where I stand on the draft. I don't get insanely involved in it because whether it's Bijan Robinson, whether it's an offensive lineman, whether it's a safety, whether it's a wide receiver, none of it matters unless they pan out. And we've all seen the hit rate on the majority of the picks, whether it's because like you said, the late first round is essentially a second round. When you get to that point, they're all lottery tickets. And I do understand how you are justifying the pick for Bijan Robinson because you think that it's a lottery ticket that has the best chance of returning on investment. I totally get that. I totally do. I wonder where you stand as far as Bean is concerned with that situation. And you say, all right, are we looking to, I think what it all comes down to, as I think, like you said, you look at that position. And I guess if maybe we don't think about this enough, but I guess if Bean's looking at it and saying, I really like an offensive lineman in the second round that I personally think would give us is just as much value, maybe a little less than the guy we could get in the first round, but we can still get Bijan Robinson, then I do get it. And I understand where you're coming from. The crazy thing about all of this is we can argue about it until the cows come home. And of course, every position you'd like to be able to take your lottery at with the guy that everybody thinks would be the best at that spot, especially late, right? Where you are getting down to specific areas on the team that have the best player available left. Obviously, earlier, that's where the best wide receivers go. There's supposed to be 4 tight ends around the top 10 this year. It's never happened before. The best edge rushers and, of course, the best O-linemen. So when you get to that area, it is the one spot in the draft. It is the one spot in the draft that the running back still available is oftentimes the best one. So it is interesting. Rev, by the way, did you say hi to Philip Sanchez? Because this is now his 5th comment. And it's crazy because he keeps commenting. And it's funny. He's still watching. And I love it. I mean, it's hilarious. I continuously, I just wanted to say hey to Philip. We appreciate you watching. Apparently he thinks we have 7 people watching in here. I must not be able to count because I see about 20 times that right now. But anyhow, Philip, we appreciate you following the Instagram, even though, I get it. It was a post about Diggs and Cowboys. I don't know if it was Bobby or who it was. It was a post. It was, whatever. I mean, we all have our opinions. Clearly, you have yours. So we appreciate
he wanted his attention, and he got it.
He did, and he got it. I'll tell you what, I appreciate him because he's continuously pumping out into the comments section. He's giving us something to talk about. So, Philip,
that's what we need.
Appreciate you. Because not only is he on here watching, but he's also apparently following the Instagram too. So Philip, he loves it. I mean, he's all over.
He's on it. He's all in it. He's loving
it. But anyway, back to the point about the Bijan Robinson thing. I'm not. You know me, I'm not in a position where I am so anti anything when it comes to that, or where I put my faith, and it is in Bean, because I just look at what this team currently is. And there are areas on the team in which you could argue to justify that first pick with a variety of different ways. So I totally get it. The one thing that is interesting to me when you talk about Bijan Robinson and going running back, and I understand where you're getting your sentiment from around the bell cow type guy who's going to be able to take a lot off of Josh Allen's shoulders just based on the ability to do the things that he does. Where I get frustrated, I think, with the thought of running back is you do take James Cook way high up in the second round last year. I felt like he was completely underutilized this year. We never really got a chance to see the true potential. I felt like when we did see him out there were flashes of a lot of great stuff that we might not be able to develop in only year 2 because we're going back to the well now for the 3rd straight draft, trying to find a guy that we have yet to just go out and solidify in either the first or free agency.
Yeah. Or maybe they don't think that James Cook can take that type of punishment, throughout the entire year. You know what I'm saying? And so he's better served as being a complimentary guy. You know what I mean? But I think they had better plans for him, especially in the passing game, that just didn't pan out. Because he's when he coming out of college, he wasn't just a speed running back. He was the thing that really gave him his value was his receiving chops out of the backfield. You can line him up.
Right, that's why they went after him. That's why the we're talking about right now is interesting, because that's why they drafted James Cook. But the points you're making, which I understand are valid, they're the complete opposite of James Cook. So they'd be drafting the same position, but for the complete opposite reason. And it makes you wonder, it's just an odd way to look at it, only 1 year removed, right? Because that's what I was thinking as you were talking. They drafted James Cook to be the running back that was like the finesse guy, right? That was catching out of the backfield. He's more of a playmaker than he is a guy who's going to run you over on the line. And it always felt like we didn't want that. We didn't need that. But now it seems like that sentiment's changing, and it's only been a year, and we've barely seen what James Cook has to offer.
Well, don't forget they did the same thing with Motor, right? Before they got James Cook, exactly. You had Frank Gore and Motor, and then Zach Moss the following year, third round. You You know what I'm saying? So they don't have a problem with drafting another running back the same year.
Clearly
the
not.
following year. You know, it just
if you're on
depends
the D line
what
or
you're
running
looking
back
for.
recently, you're getting picked at some point within the first 3 rounds. It's just a matter of when. You know,
Would you rather have Bijan Robinson or Derrick Henry?
Oh, I'd absolutely rather have Bijan Robinson because that's the whole point. And that's why nobody drafts a running back in the first round anymore, because when you do get a running back in, especially one that hits, that's why, like, what the Giants are facing right now is tough, because Saquon Barkley is really the only person on that team right now that sells a jersey in that Giants stadium. He's really the only one. He's the only marketable guy in that entire team. Like I mentioned earlier, and I love Saquon Barkley. I got my Penn State helmet right behind me. Huge Penn State fan. I watched Saquon live and in Beaver Stadium multiple times. One of my all-time favorite players ever. And in college, watching him play in person was one of the most extraordinary things ever. The guy is an absolute specimen. I love Saquon Barkley.
Yep.
Taking him at number 2 in that draft with the quarterback talent that was there was one of the worst picks I have ever seen. And we've seen it. We've seen the repercussions of it. The Giants just last year finally win a playoff game. This is now going into 5 years after drafting Saquon Barkley, and they have a quarterback right now that they're going to have to pay near market value that they probably do not want to, pay him. And not only that, Saquon Barkley, he came back extraordinarily last year, still injured. And that's the problem with these running backs. Every single top running back last year, Rev, every one of them got injured. Every single one of them. Christian McCaffrey was injured. Derrick Henry was injured. Dalvin Cook was injured. Everybody at some point gets banged up. Now, when you ask me about Derrick Henry, the reason I want Bijan Robinson, I don't have to give anything up for him other than the pick I take him at. I don't have to pay him literally anything. And I get the best. And this is the unfortunate part, and it sucks. This is why I don't understand how you. I feel bad for these guys, because if I'm the Bills, if I take him in, right, I use his best years during the Bills' best opportunity to win. And then if I need to move on, I can, and I don't have to pay him another contract.
Exactly. That's another major difference, and a great point, because Saquon Barkley, number 2 overall, terrible. They didn't have a team, but they still drafted a running back. That didn't make any sense. The Bills are loaded. They have a team. They have a quarterback. You get a guy at 27, completely different scenario, right? But then you have that kind of generational talent. But then guess what? He's on his rookie contract. First round for 4 years.
That's why the Bears were potentially talking about getting rid of Justin Fields. I mean, this is the way people work now. Because you try to turn that contract means so much. It everything.
Means a whole lot, especially at this position. If you're able to land a generational kind of guy, we're not talking about a slouch. You're talking about a generational running back. We're not talking about what the Chiefs did, a few years ago when they got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, with the last pick of the first round, and then now he's not even playing, and they got some 7th round draft pick playing now. That was dumb. Okay, but we're talking about Bijan Robinson. Like he's that elite. You get him on his rookie contract for 4 years with the opportunity to do, with this 5th year option. By then, with the team the way it is, you're already expecting by then to win a Super Bowl, because the team is so loaded. You're not a bottom feeder type of team trying to add a top running back thinking that the running back is going to be the one that's going to get you over the hump. No, man, this team is loaded and ready right now. Adding a guy like him, 27, first round, would make a ton of sense if the O-line is taken care of.
Yeah. And it's great points. And back to the Derrick Henry situation. I love Derrick Henry. He's one of my favorite players to watch. You'll always remember him. I think he's going to be one of those guys that we'll always remember from this generation. Just truly a one-of-a-kind back, and there's really not going to be many other guys like him, I think, going forward. He might be one of the last of his kind. I mean, he's just one of those guys that does not necessarily fit the mold of the league anymore, and that's why he's been so dominant, because there's nobody really like him. But the reality is he is 29 years old now, and that's like the dog years for running backs it's dead on. I mean, it's amazing. My most perfect quintessential example is Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley was the best player arguably in the entire league, and all of a sudden you blink and he wasn't even in the league anymore. Derrick Henry's not that. He was built longer to last, but as we see, he's a guy who was essentially indestructible. Now he's getting injured. Now he's getting older. And you want to talk about a guy who's the face of the franchise. He was the Tennessee Titans, and I understand they got to get moving on themselves, but oftentimes that shows you, what's going on. I mean, obviously they don't want to get rid of Derrick Henry, and I just think for what you'd have to give up, and it's not like he'd be cheap unless he wanted to be cheap, right? I mean, this is back to the situation earlier where we were talking about contracts. It all depends on who you're dealing with. Does Derrick Henry, and this is what Tom Brady started, and this is what a lot of people like to do now. If Derrick Henry wants to go and compete for a championship, right? Maybe he does go to a Buffalo or somebody for a price tag that would be significantly less than it would be somewhere else that
below market value.
Just wants him to sell tickets. I mean, that's just the reality. But the point you made is spot on. If that is something that they truly think that they want to add to this team, right? A prolific bell cow running back, then you absolutely go the younger route, because what you're doing is you're continuing to just kick the can down the road. Signing a veteran like Henry, yeah, you think it's a great sign, but it's going to be expensive. And with the injuries now and the age, it's just not worth the money, because you're not going to get out of it what you think you will over an extended period of time. So, love the points, though, by the way. I mean, I don't know if you got me sold on wanting to do it, but you have me sold and understanding on the reasoning behind why you would consider it. And I think you can do that. I really do think you can do that with just about any position. I really do. It's just the running back position is so argumentative because of because of how disposable the positions become. That's just all it is.
Yeah. I mean, and there's more than one way to skin a cat too, right?
Sure.
So, I mean, even if it's not Bijan Robinson, there's other routes they can go.
But he'd be the only one in round one, obviously.
The only one. That's all I'm saying is if he's there, then I would pick. If he's not there, I'm not. There's no way I'm picking anybody else in round one. There's other guys that you can draft later on.
All right, we're $1.50 in, and this was great. Did not feel like it, and it's great. You want to know why I love today? I was so excited the way today was. I'm so, once again, thanks for coming on, because days like today where it feels like there's more going on, it's just way more fun, because when you're the juices always flow better. I was telling Kevin, the Writers Club, by the way, is back. It's on Sunday nights now, and I was helping Kevin get it set up, and he's doing it with Zach. And I was telling him, I go, dude, when you're with someone else, like, it's fun doing it by yourself when you get to do your own thing and chat. But when you're with someone else, man, it's like you get so much more out of it than you ever anticipated. Like, you go into tonight, and you probably didn't think we would talk about half the things we do. And just the way it goes. Super fun. The one thing I want to end with before we hop off here is the best thing I saw today, and I'm honestly ashamed with myself at the fact that I did not know of this guy sooner. We're talking about one of the. You want to talk about?
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. We're talking about Bills draft picks. Talking about potentially going offensive line. Cody Mauch. Is that how you pronounce it? Cody Mauch.
Yes, how you pronounce it. Yep.
I don't know if you guys have seen him somehow. Today, this is the first I've seen him, and it was love at first sight. I'm not even kidding. This guy,
basketball game.
He is. There's legend. I tweeted this at some guy earlier who I forgot who it was who commented on me. I go, there's legends, and then there's this guy. I mean, this guy is the alpha of all males. So for those who don't know, Cody Mauch, he's an offensive lineman who's coming out of college, currently going into the draft. He looks like a Viking. I mean, he's massive. He's got a big red beard and a gigantic, long red mane of hair. And he's missing the majority of his front teeth. And he loves it. And it's like his thing. It's like how Michael Strahan's got the gap, and that's what you recognize. Cody's essentially riding with the toothless look. And the reporter who's interviewing him at the combine is kind of like, you're going to the NFL, man. Like, you're going to be making some serious money. You're going to be able to get some teeth. And you can genuinely tell he has no desire to get teeth when he inevitably gets to the NFL and starts making money. So here is my man, Cody. And like I said, I love this guy. Where is it? Here we go. This is Cody.
Just a little basketball game in 7th grade.
By the way, so they asked. I was so caught off guard. By the way, the question to him is literally like, "What happened to your teeth?" Like, that's literally the question. We're talking about the dude's teeth right now.
Just a little basketball game in 7th grade. I go for a loose ball, ran into someone, and my teeth were all kind of jacked up. Had to go get them pulled out. Yeah, they're all loose in there. So had to go get them pulled out. And I never really got them fixed. And we'll see how the process goes if I ever end up getting them fixed or not.
Well, the thing.
He just basically told you what I just said. He's got that dude has had no front teeth since 7th grade. Would you want to go up against that guy? Hell no. Hell no. That is the most intimidating thing ever. A guy who is that comfortable and that do you know how much of an alpha male you have to be missing all your front teeth and love it and not give a single shit about it?
Yeah.
That is the coolest. I mean, I love that guy. Love him.
I think he said unless his mom tells him to fix him.
He literally said, he said, unless my mom like sedates me and drags me to the dentist, I am going toothless the rest of the way here. And I think it's the coolest thing ever. And I love him. I love the guy.
And he's a
man. Yeah. So Rev, wow, almost 2 in the books, man. It's great. And you want to know what's even better? This is just the tip of the iceberg because March 6th is today. And this time next week, the league year starts. I've got a feeling by this time next week, probably way sooner, we are going to know where Lamar Jackson's going to be, where potentially Aaron Rodgers is going to be. Daniel Jones could be making $45 million a year. I mean, this is
terrible.
A lot of stuff going on. But Rev, I appreciate you, brother.
Yes, sir, man.
You're welcome. Anytime you get that itch, baby, you know it. And I got a feeling you're going to be scratching a little bit come the next couple months here when things start picking up a little bit.
Next week, I'm going to be itching a whole lot.
Well, I always got the back scratcher readily available. You know how it is.
There you go,
all right,
baby.
everybody. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. We're back at it again next week. Same place, same time. And I'll see you then. And, hey, enjoy the rest of your week. And go Bills.
Go Bills.
Ding, ding, ding.